Here, I want to have a look at this, yeah? So I'm going to go backwards before we go forwards. I think I've probably shown this once before. If I haven't, I've certainly described it. This is an advert for a Danish television station called TV2. This advert was part of the, I don't know what you call it, the vision board, the whatever, the swatch things at the start of Today FM as to what they wanted to do. Now, I will read out what the subtitles are because people who are listening to the audio podcast won't see them. So this was part of what Today FM was trying to do, okay? First of all, what you haven't seen in this advert is a whole bunch of people have come into this room together. A whole bunch of people have then got themselves into these organized groups. You've got the hoodie wearing teens. You've got the mums with prams. You've got the elderly retired people. You've got the business people, and they're all segregated into these boxes of who they are and where they are in life. This is what this Danish television station did as an advert to try and say, this is our audience. And this is one of the ways that Today FM tried to do what they were going to do. Welcome. I'm going to ask you some questions today. Some of them might be a bit personal, but I hope you will answer them honestly. Who in this room was the class clown? And then what we see is people from every group, from the tattoo group, see like that if you're watching, every group comes to the front.
I do love this clip though.
It's good, eh? Cool. The next question, who are step parents? People from every group come to the front. You get the point. So what happened is, this television station, and I know this was part of the inspiration for Today FM, was like, we can get people from many, many area groups that have similarities. We don't have to be so tribal. We can make this work. So, the 25-year-old hoodie wearing youth, whatever, we can perhaps provide to them like we can to the 40-year-old parent. That was part of how they started up. Now, you might remember this young fella, Chewy. His name's George of the Jungle.
Oh, well, yes, George.
We talked a bit about the day. We talked a bit about Today FM the day it started. This is what we said. Because what they did when they're setting it up is they wanted to be, and they want to be something that no matter where you are in society, what sector you're in, they want to be able to pull you in with something. So it'll have quite a broad reach. Criticisms by some of the concept is that's sort of what RNZ does. And if this is RNZ with adverts, will anyone listen to it? That's to be determined. I have no criticism. I actually think that their aspirations are amazing. I think if they can do it, it will be an amazing radio station, pulling in all aspects of society. Whether they can or can't will be another. It could be a huge train wreck as well, because when you're the jack of all trades, you become the master of none. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Right. So on the day it started, we earmarked that idea. If it's the jack of all trades, it could be the master of none. They didn't see ratings. Maybe that was the answer. One other part here as well, and this is about the aspirational part of what they were going to try and do. I think the aspirational part of it we talk about constantly the world becoming tribal, and what they're saying is within those tribes there are similarities. Let's pull the similarities out. So rather than looking at the tribal aspect of talkback and just talk to the conservative 70-year-old white people, let's actually say in that conservative 70-year-old white people, there's topics that are going to work with people who are also, progressive and 25 and, and middle of the range and 40. And if they can do it, it'll be really interesting. I wonder if that kind of model in America would work better, because in the US, you've got 330 million people to pull from. So if you only do 1 or 2%, it's still a really big audience. In New Zealand, the audience is so much smaller, and it's getting smaller. Oh, maybe not every day. Radio's still doing very well in New Zealand. But, if you pull 1 or 2%, it's an unsuccessful radio station that can't sustain itself. But if, these guys need to be up there with ZB, they need to be 10 to 15% of the marketplace for the amount of money and the talent they've got, what they're throwing at it. But I guess we'll see. And we have seen, and they weren't, and they couldn't. Now, Chewy, you're going to have the floor now for a bit, because the last part of the show, I'm going to talk about what I think they got wrong and what they should have done. It's a little bit, I don't want to dance on someone's grave, but we commentate on the commentators. This is a pretty big series of commentators that are no longer with us. So we kind of called it A year ago,
Yeah.
we said they have to be careful. These are the pitfalls, and the pitfalls seem to come to fruition, Chewy.
First of all, just a small criticism there. When Tova came in and they had, well, when they were told to get off air and start playing music, if you don't immediately lock the studio door and put on Rage Against the Machine, you have failed. No, you have to kick this door down. I'm staying in here until you get me out of the studio. That's how I play it. That's how everybody should play it. I didn't listen to a lot of Today FM. I'll be honest. So people, please correct me here. But I always felt that they were trying to do that broad thing, but ultimately they were looking at ZB's audience and going, "We want that. We want that audience, not a different audience. We want their audience." And they just, it's not there. So I mean, if ZB goes right, maybe Today should have gone more left. I mean, I'd certainly want to see that. But again, RNZ probably fills that role more than anything.
But RNZ doesn't do it commercially. I mean, there's a difference.
Yeah.
RNZ. So, okay. So you're stealing my thunder a little bit here.
Because we're the same person, Pat.
No, you're more authoritarian than me. You always forget this. So this is they had this aspirational start. Yeah. Now I always look back to ZB, and I look back to when ZB started. When ZB started up with Paul Holmes and these people, they were all in their 30s. Yeah. They started this station with these, primarily young guys, and they were all guys, I think, probably at the time, and they built over 10 years. When Today FM started up, there was a promise of 10 years and sort of a guarantee of 5 years runway, right? And what happened is they started off, or they had this idea as a part of their vision board to be aspirational and be all things to all people. Now, I think I've worked long enough in media and created content for long enough to know that kind of doesn't work, because you become a jack of all trades and a master of none. So what they unfortunately did with Duncan Garner and Leah Parnapa and Mark Richardson, right? That's three of the biggest opinion talk parts. So morning is news, right? Which is really should be just mostly journalism. Drive is news, mostly journalism. Daytimes and nights can be opinion. Nights was Polly Gillespie, who was fun. And she just, she basically did Polly. But those days in the middle, they had someone who said they'd vote for Trump if they had been living in America. They have someone who said he would like to, who obviously was angling to be a national MP, and someone who's an ACT voter. Those were their three main daytime hosts. And Chewy, whether it was active or not, I've spoken to management at Today FM who overtly say that their opinion talk is right. So you're exactly right. Whether it was an active choice or not, after this inspirational start, or this inspirational idea of being all things to all people, they then put in, they became in the opinion piece, at least, News Talk ZB Light. And we're not a big enough country to have News Talk ZB twice. Now, what I would have done was there is low-hanging fruit, and the low-hanging fruit is left.
Yeah.
I don't mean has left.
That's what we are. We love the low-hanging fruit. It's easy.
Is the left. Yeah. What is it? We like, what do you call it? Not undereducated low-hanging fruit. I think that's what we like most of all.
You don't want to work hard for the high-hanging fruit. That's
So, in my opinion, I think what Today FM should have done, and actually, to be honest, I said this to people at Today FM on management level a couple of times, is why haven't you gone down and done exactly the opposite of ZB? They are providing an audience. I mean, Kerry Woodham has swung to the right, in my opinion, to provide for Leighton's old audience rather than trying to grow her own.
Yeah.
That's what I think has happened there. Why didn't you have a raving lefty in there on the other side? Look, we get people every night. We've had people tonight come in here not liking us. You would get the righties coming along to have a crack at the lefty. It's not going to lessen your audience, but you might also attract the lefties who don't have anywhere to go right now. Yeah. If it was me running that place, I would have actively gone for younger, lefter people in my opinion slots. I would have driven the political talk heavily. And I think that was a mistake. Now we'll never know. There's no, we don't have parallel universes here that the multiverse, we can go check it out. But I think they made a real mistake with, I think Duncan Garner, although he's very good at what he does, right? But I think he was a mistake because you listen to Duncan Garner when he's basically got all the same talking points as Kerry Woodham, who's got, 10, 15, 20 times the audience, which means 10, 20 times the resource, 10, 20 times the guests. I don't know if Luxon's ever been in for an hour with Duncan Garner, but he was in there fairly regularly with Kerry Woodham. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I just think that is really, really one of the places that whoever was the person in charge of making those decisions, whether it was the CEO or whether it was the board or whatever, there's some interesting conversation around the former CEO Cam Wallace being a massive national supporter, being someone who I think worked with Luxon at Air New Zealand, and some conversation going on that is he left to go off and then talk, work with and for national. Now I don't know any of that, but I've seen the talk around. Now, if you've got someone who is a massively national person who's trying to set up a quote unquote balanced radio station, where do you think it's going to fall? It's not going to fall on the left. It's going to fall at the very best center right, if not further right. So I really feel disappointed that there could have been a home for, and when I say some of us, I don't mean us broadcasters. I mean, that could have been a part of it, but for some of us listeners, who have a left perspective, who like the left, who want to hear those thoughts and views, as opposed to thoughts and prayers, which the other side tend to do, there could have been something brighter. Would it have worked? Who knows? But it fucking would have lasted a year, which is all the current thing lasted. It lasted a year. They put $9 million into that to get it going, and it lasted a year.